We've got a variety of Pythiums that we have to think about, and of course Pythium always scares everybody because it's active, we don't notice it, and then all of a sudden it explodes on us and we can get into real trouble. And the other thing about Pythium, as you can see in the far picture, those are actually the resting spores of Pythium that have impregnated themselves on a root hair, waiting for the conditions to grow when the soil temps change and the nutritional load coming down from the plant gets recognized. There's also a variety of Pythiums that we have, and if you look at this list, you can see that we've got ones that operate in low temperatures, high temperatures, ones that do mostly root dysfunction. And the key point I'm bringing out here is we have a very limited number of Pythium control products. We probably have 5 that we use, and those 5 have not changed in years. And of course, we've all watched certain species of Pythiums be moved or changed based on our treatment locations or our treatment practices that we've had at a location. So it's important to understand that there are more Pythiums than one, and also that not one product is going to work consistently over and over again on Pythium. So we need to think about what's that rotational strategy, what's that management look like. So we've been working for about 6 years now on a product called Curator, and our real goal in Curator was to think about that resistance management need. We wanted to make sure that we were addressing what was going on with the products that were the mainstays and not to avoid the overuse. The other side of that was that we have new regulatory challenges that have been added to these labels, and if you look at most of these labels, we get about 3 or 4 uses depending on use rate for those products. And most of us need more than 3 or 4 applications to manage Pythium in a season, because you figure it's going to ramp up, let's say, anywhere from June or July, depending on region, and it may stay with us through September. And of course, we're dealing with 7 to 10 or 14-day application intervals, which often overstrip those 3 or 4 application limits on a label. So we came up with Curator, and Curator is going to be a mixture of 2 known AIs in propamacarb and mefenoxam. It's going to give us 2 different frac groups, so different ways of attacking the fungus, and it's also going to give us the ability to have material that will move in the plant. So when you look at these 2, the nice thing about marrying these 2 AIs together is that both of them can be root or foliar absorbed. Both of them are going to stay in the root zone 1 to 2 inches for about 14 days as far as their soil half-lives. Both of them have the ability to be systemic or translaminar depending upon where they're applied. And both of them have the ability to attack not only the spore production, but also the hyphal mycelium that is spreading both outside and inside the plant. So these 2 married together just make so much sense in that realm of thinking about resistance management and how these materials are moving when we're targeting either a foliar or a crown Pythium or a root Pythium. So to look at quick data, I've got data here for about 5 years, and I start off with this one from 2020. And what you're looking at here is the early conceptual ideas of putting these AIs together and watching what they do. And of course, of interest is, you look here at this red line, and you look at this green line, and those are propamacarb and mefenoxam by themselves versus combining the 2 down here with Curator. So we always see this type of an effect. The other thing I want you to watch as we look at these 5 years, again, this is Rutgers, this is done on ryegrass, it's inoculated, so we're to acid test, but I also want you to watch what's going on with Segway over time, looking at these next 5 years worth of data. So if we do big bars, little bars, the Curator is working quite well under the extreme stresses, compared to the other products in the market. And it's not so much to say buy this one only, it's about the rotational aspect of these, that we need something to put in these to make sure that we're getting past those 3 or 4 application limits on some labels, as well as to move modes of action, and that's really going to be the key. So I moved to 2021, and you can see 2021 here. Notice the Segway is creeping up. You'll see this trend more and more. And what the interesting thing is about that, this has been a mainstay in the market, but it really shows to us this needs to be rotated. We have to watch what we're doing with these. And of course, you look at the Curator, and that's working quite well down there at the bottom. big bars, little bars, again, working quite well in 2021, and you can see some of these materials drifting a little bit. I moved to 2022, and again, you can see how the Curator is working, and you can watch how some of these other materials, you see the Serrata and the Segways kind of drifting, but the combination material having those two modes of action together is really holding strongly. And of course, pictures always tell 1,000 words, as far as doing nothing and doing something, and we're getting a very, very high levels of management here with the combination of Curator. I moved to 23, and again, you see some of these same trends. You see the Curator holding at the bottom. You see the Banol and the Segway kind of jumping around. But of interest here, I want you to notice here at that break point. You see the break point there where the Curator, because of the two AIs, is holding, but you're seeing the breaks of the two individuals as the pressure is ramping up. So again, the power of having these two together at the same time in the tank. And of course, big bars and little bars, again, the Curator is working quite well. And of course, pictures, seeing how these things are looking. You see the untreated, you see the Curator in this ryegrass stand, and you can see what Segway is doing. So I moved to 25, and now we're looking at root rot. And of course, root rot, different critter as far as which organism attacks the roots versus the crown and foliar. And you're watching here some of the standards as far as the Segway, the Serrata, and the Curator. And again, you can see this combination really holding strong. And of course, big bars and little bars, you get that nice picture of efficacy here. The big trouble or big issue with this was, as we're watching Cyazofamid drift, and we know that Propamacarb can drift as well, this has been a big issue in the South, especially with the root dysfunctional Pythiums. So we ran a very large trial with Jim Kearns and looked at this type of rotational combination program. So you're looking at phos acids in with a Serrata, in with a Segway, and mixing these materials in together versus some of the standards as Serrata versus some other competitive programs. And we look at this over time, and you can see the Nufarm program is performing very, very strongly. I can tell you that if I just did Curator alone over and over again every 14 weeks, it doesn't do well. It just won't. But it's the idea of rotating these materials together. So, new product, we wanted to really concentrate on the strengths of these two together from a rotational point of view, because there are no silver bullets. No one product can do it all. We have to be aware of that. We know that we're getting very high efficacy on the crown and the foliar blights in the cool season. And we know as we move into the warm season turf, we're getting very good effects because of the soil location on things like root dysfunction. And it really does give us the ability to have a new tool to put into this rotational situation.